At my lowest point, he went and married me. Everyone said he married me to get back at my sister. But after he died in a car accident, he left all his inheritance to me. And a voice recorder. I gently pressed play. And there was his hoarse, deep voice. He said, "Song Sarah, can you love me just a little?" Years later, I finally glimpsed the love he had hidden beneath the ice, vast and magnificent. When I opened my eyes again, I had been reborn. Mrs. Song was holding my hand and said, "Aine, will you go to prison in your sister's place?" Before I turned 16, I was the pampered daughter of the Song family, loved by my parents and favored by my brother, living a carefree life. But then Song Ru came knocking with a DNA test, revealing that nurse had switched the babies at birth. She was the real heiress, while I was just an imposter in her place. I wanted to leave, but my biological parents had already passed away, and Mrs. Song couldn't bear to see me become an orphan. So she formally adopted me. My adoptive parents treated me well. My brother didn't neglect me. And Song Ru never made things difficult for me. I was grateful. But later, Song Ru got into an argument with a co-star backstage on a film set. During the altercation, the man fell down the stairs and became a vegetable. There were no surveillance cameras at the time, but someone had to take responsibility. And I happened to be there, witnessing everything. Mrs. Song came to me in tears, begging me to take the blame for Song Ru. Song Ru knelt before me, bowing her head and slapping herself, saying she was sorry. The entire family wept uncontrollably. So I nodded. I took the blame for her and went to prison, enduring unimaginable hardships. At first, the Song family would still come to visit me, shedding tears out of guilt or apology. But gradually, no one came anymore. One day, the prison organized an activity, and the warden asked us about our plans after release. I thought long and hard before writing down my answer. After I'm released, I want to see Mr. Song's mother once. The inmate next to me laughed at me for writing something so simple. Mr. Song and his mother will definitely come to pick you up. How could you not see them? I smiled and didn't argue. But when I was finally released, no one came. Only Mr. Song's assistant took me to the airport and gave me a large sum of money. He didn't say a word, but I understood everything. Mr. Song and his mother had abandoned me. The Song family had abandoned me. I didn't take the money. It wasn't about pride. I just didn't want to owe the Song family anything anymore. The Song family raised me for over 20 years. And I spent 5 years in prison for their daughter. We're even now. I rented an apartment and ran myself ragged looking for a job that wouldn't discriminate against my criminal record. But after just half a month, I was fired. I pleaded with the manager, who finally stammered out, "You crossed the wrong people." I froze, unable to say a word. People you shouldn't mess with. Besides Song House. Who else could it be? That day, I walked onto the street with my bag. A light rain was falling, and the cool droplets fell on my face and body. As I passed Times Square, the big screen was showing Song Ru's live stream. I stopped and looked up. On the award stage, she was stunningly beautiful, radiating her beauty. The camera panned back, and I saw Song Ru's parents looking at her with tears in their eyes. It was as if they were looking at a priceless treasure, their eyes filled with love. I don't know why, but I suddenly recalled the first visit to the prison. Mrs. Song looked at me, who had wasted away so quickly, and tearfully promised me, "Aine, once you're released, Mom will take care of you for the rest of your life. Mom loves you." But 2 years ago, when I saw her for the last time, her expression was filled with only a faint sense of guilt. She said, "Sarah, Viola is engaged to Hee Wenjin. She really likes him. Once you're released, could you please leave here to avoid being discovered by the Hee family? Hee Wenjin, the heir apparent of the Hee family. There were televisions in prison, and I occasionally heard about the deep love between Song-Ru and Hee Wenjin. Everyone said that Hee Wenjin was a notorious playboy in the entertainment industry, but he had settled down for Song-Ru, entering the entertainment industry he once despised, paving the way for her, providing her with connections and resources, and even presenting awards to her personally. I occasionally envy Song-Ru. I envy her for having loving parents, a doting boyfriend, and achieving both career and love in just over 2 decades. Unlike me, no parents, no career, no lover, and no one loves me. As for marrying Hee Wenjin, it was an accident. After being fired, I returned to my hometown and worked as a waitress in a restaurant. It was pretty busy. I don't know how he found out about me, but when he found me, I was serving beer to a customer. The man was drunk and made inappropriate advances. I frowned and slapped him across the face. He flew into a rage and kicked me to the ground. The beer bottle and food scattered all over me. It was scalding hot. The man wasn't satisfied and kept cursing, ready to attack again. But the next moment, he fell silent. I opened my eyes and met the man's eyes, which shone like stars. He smiled lazily, but there was no sincerity in it. Song Sarah, you're really here. I stood up, shook off the food scraps from my body, nodded, and tried to walk past him to leave. But just as I took a few steps, I heard his voice behind me. You look so pitiful. Why don't you marry me? I turned around in shock. Have you finally lost your mind? I'm serious. Hee Wenjin appraised me with a dark, emotionless gaze, but his words were sincere, to be honest. I was dumped by your sister, and I'm in a bad mood. And you've been pushed to this point by the Song family. We're both victims here. The streetlight flickered twice in the dim light before going out. I couldn't see his face, only hearing him snort with a mocking laugh, the tip of his cigarette glowing red. Anyway, you have nothing now. Marry me, you won't lose anything. What are you afraid of? I thought for a moment. I didn't say anything. He waited quietly, until a cool breeze blew by, and I instinctively shivered. He took off his custom-made coat and draped it over my shoulders. In an instant, the faint scent of tobacco filled my nostrils. I said, "All right." When the news of our engagement spread, everyone was shocked. They all said that Hee Wenjin was marrying me just to spite Song-Ru. At the wedding, when Hee Wenjin said he was willing, I noticed Song-Ru crying red-eyed in the audience, leaving the scene in a fit of emotion. I glanced at the man, but he just smiled, not even looking at her, as if he had never loved her, as if he truly didn't care. After the wedding, Hee Wenjin treated me well. He arranged a secretary position for me, keeping us together at all times. When I asked him why, he just laughed lightly. I don't trust leaving such a beautiful woman at home alone. I'm afraid a thief will steal you away, and I'll lose my purity. That would be a huge loss for me. I laughed at his immorality. I didn't bother arguing with him. During those years in prison, I suffered too much. My body couldn't endure any more hardship. What would be a common cold or cough for an ordinary person would turn into a serious illness for me. Hee Wenjin hired various specialists to treat me, and I finally started to recover. By my bedside, he held my hand, looking serious and devout. Song Sarah, I bought you. Your life belongs to me. You can't die before me. Childish words. But seeing the bittersweet expression in his eyes, I eventually nodded. I didn't understand why he was so emotional, but I had long since learned not to pry or disturb him. All right. gray hairs together. But in the end, the one who broke the promise was not me. It was He Wenjin. Mr. He passed away at 3 a.m. yesterday due to a severe car accident. Please take care of yourself. As I pushed open the morgue door, Mr. and Mrs. He were already sobbing uncontrollably. Looking at He Wenjin's pale, lifeless face, I could only think to myself, heaven favored him, granting him a family background, appearance, and abilities that others could only envy. Yet why was it so stingy as to give him only 34 years? What a pity! What a pity! He Wenjin's funeral was arranged entirely by me. 5 years after our marriage. Many people still didn't approve of our union. Song-ru, out of love turned to hatred, waited eagerly to see me suffer. But no one could have predicted that He Wenjin would leave all his property and shares to me. Mr. and Mrs. He had no objections. But as they left, their backs were hunched, and they no longer had the vigor of their youth. A week later, He Wenjin's Mr. Chin brought me the inheritance transfer documents. Before leaving, he handed me a voice recorder. This is Mr. He's belongings. It's been repaired. I think you should have it. Song Sarah. The man's voice in the voice recorder was clear and cold, tinged with a faint static sound, making it even more hoarse. I married you not because I was angry with Song-ru, but because I liked you. I was startled for a moment, but my heart remained calm. It was as if I had already anticipated this. He Wenjin smiled softly. Perhaps you've already forgotten, but we've met before. At that time, you were the school's most sought-after student, extremely intelligent, the teacher's favorite, and my mentor would often talk about you. Every time he finished talking with your teacher, he would come to me, looking annoyed, and say, He Wenjin, I hate you now. Stay away from me. He imitated his mentor's tone, sounding especially cute. I couldn't help but laugh. But the next moment, I quickly stopped. He Wenjin continued, I hated you so much back then, but I couldn't help but keep my eyes on you. I guess I have a bit of a masochistic streak. Hee. But later, you ended up in prison for so-called intentional assault. I didn't believe it, so I insisted on investigating. But unfortunately, Song House had cleaned up all the evidence. So I set my sights on Song-ru. So that's how it was. He Wenjin and Song-ru's much talked about love story was just an excuse for him to find out the truth about my imprisonment. But He Wenjin didn't expect Song-ru to be so tight-lipped. But he eventually found some clues. I suddenly remembered that before our wedding, He Wenjin once asked me excitedly, Ain, do you want to take revenge? No. I shook my head. We're even. Years later, I finally understood that he must have uncovered the truth that day. He investigated the truth for me. And for me, he hid the truth. It turns out, everything was because of me. The emotions in my eyes trembled violently, and my whole body couldn't help but shake uncontrollably as tears fell one by one. But to be honest, my acting must have been really good. So I deceived everyone, including you. Do you know how cute my expression and gaze were when I went to ask you to marry me? Never mind. I've said too much. Actually, I've always wanted to ask you. He Wenjin cleared his throat. He was always cold and aloof. But at that moment, his voice carried a rare hint of youthful shyness. Song Sarah. Can I also like you? In this lifetime, I might not hear it. But in the next, when I come to find you, please tell me. Amidst the screeching of brakes and the chaotic shouts of the crowd, I heard his final words clearly. He said, Song Sarah, I really like you so much. The last syllable was tinged with a hint of laughter. The emotions I had been suppressing all this time suddenly collapsed. In the empty living room, the lilies Wenjin had brought home a few days ago were still on the table. I've always liked lilies. He held them up to me as if they were a precious treasure. Ain, do they smell nice? I picked them out one by one specially for you. Ain, from now on, I'll be the one to change the flowers in the house. At that moment, the tiny sparkles of joy in his eyes were like gentle starlight. How could I say no? But the one who made the promise was the one who lied. He left first. He took with him the last vestige of life from the lilies. Warm sunlight streamed through the floor-to-ceiling windows onto my shoulders. I raised my hand to touch it, but it felt cold and icy. To this day, I finally glimpsed the love that Wenjin had hidden beneath the ice, powerful yet secret. But it seemed too late. Mr. Chen saw Mrs. He again a week later. He came to collect the inheritance transfer documents. He had followed Wenjin for many years and had seen Mrs. He on numerous occasions. In his memory, Mrs. He was always dignified, gentle, and smiling, like a jade Buddha on a pedestal, observing the world's chaos with a cold gaze. She neither rejoiced nor angered, nor was she moved. Even when she learned of Wenjin's death, she merely paused for a moment, her eyes remaining dry. Wenjin had been so good to her, yet she shed a single tear for him. Mr. Chen had once felt sorry for Wenjin in his heart. But this time, as soon as he entered the living room, Mr. Chen saw Mrs. He holding several bouquets of already wilted lilies. Her face as pale as falling snow. Upon seeing him, she didn't even bother with a polite smile, but coldly stated, Mr. Chen, donate his property to an orphanage. I don't want his. There was no room for negotiation. As he was leaving, Mr. Chen couldn't help but turn back and ask, Madam, did you ever love Mr. He? Mrs. He just smiled but didn't answer. Many years later, Mrs. He had become a philanthropist featured in the media, having sponsored countless orphans. The next time he saw her was at her deathbed. She was clearly only 45, yet her hair was entirely white. At that moment, she gazed out the window as if seeing someone, her face bearing a hint of a young girl's innocence. She said, I liked him. I always did. Ain, please save your sister. She's so young, how can she go to prison? Sister, I really know I was wrong. I didn't mean to do it. I don't want to go to prison. I'm a big star. If I go to prison, my whole life will be ruined. When I woke up from the darkness, the first thing I heard was a chaotic chorus of cries. My head ached terribly. I slowly opened my eyes and finally saw everything clearly. Song-Ru was kneeling on the ground, sobbing uncontrollably. Song-Ru's father held her tightly, trying to comfort her. Song-Ru's mother was clutching my hand tightly, her eyes and face covered in tears. She spoke with a trembling voice but with great determination. Ain, will you go to prison in your sister's place? I looked at her in silence, as if encouraging her. Mrs. Song clenched her teeth and said, Ain, there were no surveillance cameras at the scene. Only you and Aru were there. The paparazzi only captured a silhouette, which couldn't be identified. As long as you admit that you accidentally pushed Haley, the police won't be able to find anything. Don't worry. Once you're in prison, your mother will take care of everything for you. You won't suffer. After you're released, the Song family will take care of you for the rest of your life. She said the same thing last time, but the expiration date was only a year. Once the promise expired, I was kicked out of the single room and, because of my beauty, attracted the bullying and revenge of some people. Beating, Insults. Even poisoning. It was unbearable. But no one saw me. It wasn't until I was hospitalized for nitrite poisoning from the food that Song's mother came to my bedside. That day. She looked down at me with a hint of impatience. After all, it's prison, not a resort. Suffering is inevitable. Sarah. Don't be so delicate. Aru is going abroad on a business trip soon. And I'm worried. I probably won't have time to visit you anymore. After that, I never saw her again. Looking at Song's mother's tear-streaked face now, I believe every word she said was sincere. But sincerity is fleeting. The guilt and self-reproach she felt toward me eventually turned into deeper fear over time. I gently pushed Song's mother's hand away and said, "No." Song's mother was stunned, probably not expecting the docile me to refuse her. But when I spoke again, I was serious and firm. "Mother, I thank you for raising me for 20 years. But I don't want to sacrifice my entire life for this. You can call me selfish or ungrateful, but I refuse to take the blame for her. I was reborn to start anew, not to repeat the past. In my previous life, Hee Wenjin saved me. In this life, I will save myself. Then, I will walk to Hee Wenjin's side with a clear conscience and dignity intact." My refusal enraged Song's father, who scolded me for being ungrateful, having enjoyed the benefits of the Song family for so many years yet unwilling to give up even the slightest thing. Song's mother, Song Ru, wept bitterly, but seeing that I wouldn't budge, they feared I would escape. So they locked me in a room. Only my brother Ryan remained silent throughout. Just like in my previous life. Song Ru took my phone, but she didn't know I had a backup phone. I called the number. The news of Haley's accidental severe injury, leaving her in a vegetative state, was already trending on the hot list. There were few leads. Only a paparazzi had taken a blurry photo of her back. And his statement, Song Ru and her sister had spent some time alone with Haley. The police were likely already on their way. I flipped open the backup phone and instinctively dialed a phone number. Looking at the familiar digits, I hesitated but ultimately did not make the call. I didn't know why. There was a lingering fear in my heart. I was afraid that the person on the other end wasn't the one I knew. And even more afraid that when I woke up, I would never see him again. In my previous life, after Hee Wenjin passed away, I regularly paid his phone bill. At night, when it was quiet, I would send him text messages. Sometimes they were about daily life. Sometimes they were just venting. I would always receive a reply. "Aeen, I'm here." It was his auto-reply. He set it up before he died. "You say this person is so cruel." Cruelly holding on to my heart, making me unable to forget him for 10 years. 20 years. 30 years. I stood up, pulled back the curtains, and the warm sunlight streamed through the window, falling on me with a hint of coolness. I saw the police outside the door, and the subtle glances from Song's father. My hands trembling, I finally sent a text message. "Hee Wenjin, are you coming to save me?" Song's mother tried to stop me from going out, wanting to use this as evidence against me. But I forcefully knocked on the door, facing the police's questions. I ignored Song's mother's pleading gaze and answered each one. In my previous life, I was able to be convicted and the case closed because I confessed to the crime and even destroyed the evidence of my alibi. But this time, I won't be so foolish. The kindness and favors from the past 20 years have long been eroded away in my previous life. Not hating them is already my limit. In contrast to my calm composure, Song Ru appeared panicked and guilty. Who was right and who was wrong? It was clear to everyone. As Song Ru was taken away, Song's mother screamed hysterically, and Song's father glared at me with a dark expression, occasionally casting glances at me as if I were the murderer of his daughter. He wanted to tear me to pieces. The two followed Song Ru out. I stood there silently, saying nothing. At that moment, Ryan walked over to me and said in a low voice, "The Song family can no longer tolerate you. Ain. You should leave here." I looked up at him, my gaze lingering for a second on his reddened eyes. "Don't you blame me?" Ryan paused for a moment, not answering yes or no, but instead gazing distantly toward the police car. His voice was as light as a breeze. "Ain, you're also my sister." He had said those words in his previous life as well. He had urged me not to take the blame. I asked him why, and he looked down at me, his gaze as gentle as wind and rain, filled with tenderness and pity. "You are also my sister." But I had betrayed his advice. This time, however, I decided to listen to him. Song's parents must hate me to the core by now. Staying here would only cause more trouble. I said earnestly, "Brother, take care of yourself." Ryan curved his lips slightly, his voice hoarse. "Ain, live your life well." After packing my belongings, I walked out of the Song house. Looking ahead, the wind blew, sweeping up a pile of fallen leaves. At that moment, the sunlight fell on me, warm and cozy. Just then, a figure suddenly rushed toward me, speaking in a panicked tone. "Song Sarah. I'm here. Are you okay?" I froze for a moment. I looked up. The man wore a black shirt. His slender and tall figure stood straight. His deep eyes shone in the morning sun, as if he were bathed in light. His handsome face, with a touch of arrogance, looked lazy and careless. But at that moment, his face was slightly pale, and he looked at me nervously. Seeing that I was unharmed, he relaxed his expression and paused for a moment on my luggage. He spoke again, hesitantly. "Song Sarah, did you run away from home?" It was He Wenjin. To be precise, it was He Wenjin, who looked much younger. Memories of the past flashed through my mind. There was him looking at me tenderly, him yawning lazily, him holding my hand as we walked step by step into marriage. And finally, the moment we first met on that evening. He seemed lazy, but he was secretly clenching his hands tightly. He asked me, "Song Sarah, will you marry me?" At that moment, my heart was pounding wildly, and I couldn't tear my eyes away from him for a second, until he looked at me with a panicked expression and exclaimed, "Song Sarah, why are you crying? Who bullied you?" I was crying? Why was I crying? Seeing him again, I should have been happy. But all the emotions I had suppressed in my heart from my past life turned into tears and flowed out from my heart. The tears couldn't be stopped. I cried. He Wenjin quietly stayed by my side. After a long time, he embraced me, his voice low and tinged with helpless tenderness, as if comforting a beloved child. "Ain, don't cry. Who bullied you? I'll avenge you. Okay?" "No." I clutched his sleeve tightly and shook my head. "No revenge. In this life, I just want to be with you. Nothing else." I followed He Wenjin back to his apartment. It was cold and empty. That was his style. In my previous life, after He Wenjin passed away, I had lived here for a long time. It was a way to commemorate him. Or perhaps it was a way to reminisce. I couldn't quite tell. I was already familiar with the layout of the place. But I didn't notice that when I walked into the deepest part of the apartment with ease, turned the corner, pushed the door open, and entered the bathroom. He Wenjin's gaze darkened for a moment, looking at the swollen, disheveled reflection in the mirror. I sighed softly. I felt a bit ashamed. I had resolved to face He Wenjin with dignity, but every time we met, I ended up looking like this. But it's okay. He Wenjin loves me so much. He won't despise me. He never will. This is the most certain and unwavering belief I have in my entire life. As I stepped out of the restroom, He Wenjin was leaning against the door, waiting for me. He asked me, "Why are you crying?" I told him everything that had just happened. There was nothing between us that needed to be hidden. After listening, He Wenjin froze. "So, Song House wants you to take the blame?" I nodded. But I refused. This matter won't end so simply. Haley is still unconscious from her injuries. And there's no concrete evidence. We can only wait for her to wake up to take the blame. Even though Song Ru is currently considered a major suspect by the police, your suspicion isn't entirely unfounded either. His expression grew darker as he spoke. I suddenly interrupted him. "He Wenjin, I'm a bit hungry." His gaze lingered on me, but when he saw my clear eyes and lack of tension, he sighed helplessly. "I'll go make something." I nodded. In my previous life, I suffered from severe stomach issues, so He Wenjin had specifically learned medicinal cuisine and cooked for me every day. He was a skilled cook. I had always thought he was naturally skilled in the kitchen. But now, seeing the lump of noodles he served, I suddenly realized that He Wenjin, a spoiled young master, had always been waited on by others. How could he have learned to cook from the start? He learned for me. Always for me. I picked up my chopsticks and took a bite. It was quite salty. But He Wenjin looked at me expectantly. "Is it good?" His eyes sparkled with tiny stars. He was absolutely beautiful. He looked just like the man in my memories who had smiled and asked me if I liked him. I lowered my head, holding back the bitter emotions, and nodded firmly. "It's delicious. And I really like it." The last bowl of noodles was thrown into the trash can. Because I cried, He Wenjin thought it was because it was bad. He picked up his chopsticks and took a bite. Then, the next second, it went into the trash can. He frowned, looking displeased. "I want to cry too. How can it be so bad?" It was incredibly cute. It made me laugh out loud, dispelling the gloom between my brows. I encouraged him. "It's okay. You'll be a great cook in the future." "Why?" I smiled. "Because I'm your only diner in the future." The man's eyes flickered, his gaze deep and enigmatic. He spoke in a low voice. "Song Sarah, what am I to you in the future?" I was taken aback. I looked up at him, only to meet his dark, confident eyes. He had guessed correctly. Of course. He was always so smart. Perhaps. I paused for a moment before slowly saying, "Lover. Lover. The person I love." I thought He Wenjin might freeze or frown and ask for clarification. But instead, his expression softened, the corners of his eyes curved upward, and the casualness faded from his lips, leaving only sincerity. He said, "That's good. That's good." Looking at the tear tattoo trembling at the corner of his eye, I suddenly wanted to taste what it felt like. I thought about it, then did it. I lifted my foot and kissed him. Under his stunned gaze, I smiled brightly. "He Wenjin, I really like you. I forgot to tell you last lifetime. This lifetime, I'll tell you. I like you. I've always liked you." Before going to sleep, He Wenjin covered me with the blanket. "If you're scared, call me, and I'll come right over." Before leaving, he placed the amulet he wore around his neck into my palm. I knew what it was. He Wenjin was frail as a child. So He had obtained this amulet for him, to protect him as he grew up. Now, he uses it to protect my safety. I clutched the jade pendant, my heart racing, my cheeks burning, until He Wenjin slowly walked out and closed the door. Only then did I realize my face felt a bit numb. I touched my lips and realized I had been smiling the whole time. My heart felt full. He Wenjin is always like this. He appears to be a playboy who doesn't take anything seriously. But in reality, he is the most thoughtful and gentle person. That night, I couldn't fall asleep until midnight. I felt a mix of excitement and fear. I glanced at my phone beside my pillow and thought about whether Hee-Wenjin had gone to sleep yet. I was afraid to call him and disturb him. Maybe I should just send him a text message. "Are you asleep?" Just as I sent it, I felt it was unnecessary and tried to delete it. Suddenly, I heard footsteps at the door. Then, the door opened. When I opened my eyes, Hee-Wenjin was already standing by my window. The moonlight shone through the window, casting a soft glow on his shoulders, softening his sharp features. He leaned down and asked gently, "Ain, what's wrong?" It hadn't even been a minute since I sent the message. Yet he was already there. He was truly keeping his word. He said he would come, and no matter how late it was, he would come. Perhaps, like me, he hadn't slept a wink that night. All because he was afraid I might really need him. Thinking of this, my heart twisted into a tight knot. It hurt, and it felt suffocating. I stayed at Hee-Wenjin's house for half a month. The most interesting thing was waiting for Hee-Wenjin to come home. He would go into the kitchen to show off his cooking skills, while I leaned against the door, quietly watching him. Occasionally, I would lend him a hand. Under the warm yellow light, he combed his hair back, revealing a handsome yet slightly youthful face, shrouded in a soft veil of tenderness. At that moment, he had not yet graduated from university. Compared to the ruthless and decisive CEO of the previous life, he was now slightly more youthful and innocent. This was a time she had never been a part of, a time she had never known. He occasionally glanced over, his lips curving into a gentle smile. The clear love in his eyes was impossible to hide. He really liked me. In that moment, I realized that in the time I didn't know about, Hee-Wenjin had truly been sincerely in love with me. My heart tightened suddenly, and the emotions in my chest flowed through my veins, finally dissipating into a long, lingering sigh. Watching Hee-Wenjin's cooking skills improve day by day, Song House could no longer contain himself. I had thought that Song House wouldn't just let Song-Ru confess and go to prison. But I never imagined that Song House would bribe Haley's agent to frame me as the real culprit. How shameless. How despicable. On camera, Song's mother revealed the true identities of Song-Ru and me. She cried with tears streaming down her face. I never thought that Ain would intentionally harm someone else. She has always been such a good child. Now, to avoid punishment, she has framed her own sister. Although Aru is my biological daughter, she has never truly enjoyed a life of privilege. Now she is being falsely accused and sent to prison. Ain has truly broken my heart. Song-Ru huddled in her arms, awkwardly wiping away her tears while letting her own tears stream down her cheeks. "Mother, don't be sad. My sister must have made a mistake in a moment of confusion. If I can atone for her, I'm willing to take her place. As long as she can honor you, that's enough." The mother and daughter wept pitifully before the media. Those who make mistakes must take responsibility. What isn't your fault? You don't have to bear. Finally, Song's father faced the camera and spoke sternly. "Song Sarah, the Song family has raised you all these years. I hope you can step forward and atone for your mistakes." Once the video was released, the internet erupted with condemnation of me. "What a thankless wretch. You've enjoyed all the privileges of being a fake heiress for so many years. Yet you let Song House's own daughter take the blame for you. Are you even human? Song Sarah, you venomous woman. You dare to do such things but won't take responsibility. How disgusting." That's right. Song House has been so kind to you. Yet you repay their kindness with betrayal. You're nothing but a pure-blooded traitor. The insults kept coming. My private account was also exposed, and I received a flood of private messages every day. Even former classmates called to ask about my situation. I occasionally replied to those who showed concern. Those demanding I confess were immediately blocked. Amidst the chaos, I did nothing. Even if Song House continued to stir up trouble. As long as the police didn't summon me, I was innocent. Why should I panic and fall into the trap of proving my innocence? Hee Wenjin received the news that day and rushed home. His first words were, "I can help you." I smiled. "No need. I can handle it myself." But before I could finish, for some reason, I suddenly recalled an incident from my previous life. A heated argument. Though it was intense, in reality, it was because Hee Wenjin treated me too well, which made many people jealous. Some spread rumors behind my back about me being imprisoned, and the internet was filled with criticism. But in the end, it was because I wasn't worthy of Hee Wenjin. Hee Wenjin wanted to help me dispel the rumors. He wanted to attend the press conference with me and file a lawsuit against those spreading gossip. But I felt it wasn't necessary. I had been to prison before, though I had nothing to be ashamed of, and I didn't want Hee Wenjin to be dragged into it. But this enraged Hee Wenjin. He coldly demanded to know if I cared about him at all, if I even considered him my husband. But I just thought it was better to ignore him, that he was being unreasonable and irrational. That day, the living room was dark, with only the faint glow of the setting sun. After a long silence, he sneered softly and said, "You live in this world with a clear conscience, and I won't tolerate others pointing fingers at you. Song Sarah, do you understand?" I remained silent, refusing to respond. As I left, I looked back and saw his lonely figure. I felt a little regret. I thought, maybe I should have agreed to him. It was just a small thing, but I never imagined that would be the last time I saw him. After he died, I asked myself over and over again, why didn't I stay with him? Why didn't I tell him how I felt? Those bouquets of lilies, the meticulous care, the focused gaze, did I really not notice that he loved me? I knew it clearly. But I was a selfish jerk who took love for granted. I was certain that Hee Wenjin would stay with me until the end, so I indulged in his love recklessly. Yet I never once comforted his anxious heart. Until he died. I finally understood love. But the cruelest thing about love that comes too late is that before you can confess your feelings, before you can get close, it's already gone forever. There's no chance left to be reborn in another life. It's a chance given to me by heaven to make amends. What's the point of love's pride, shyness, or taking things slowly? I don't have time for that. And I can't learn it now. I just want to be with him. I want to so badly. I want to. So I tightly embraced Hee Wenjin and kissed his lips. As our lips touched, I breathed softly and said, "All right. You help me. I'll give you a reward in advance." Hee Wenjin paused for a moment, then pushed me harder onto the sofa. 2 hours later, I was too exhausted to get up. But I clung tightly to Hee Wenjin, refusing to let go. I looked at him. Though I was so tired I couldn't keep my eyes open. I still didn't want to close them. I was still a little afraid this was a dream. He leaned down, gently kissed my cheek, and whispered on my forehead, "I'm here, Ayin. Sleep. I'll always be here." I murmured in response. I couldn't hold on any longer and fell into darkness. Complete darkness. I suddenly woke up. I was wearing a light blue nightgown, lying in a black and white bedroom, with a cup of cold water on the bedside table and white pills next to it. I looked around. Everything was cold and empty. But there was no one familiar there. The pain in my heart suddenly intensified. Memories flashed through my mind, one after another, until they froze on that low, hoarse voice tinged with electricity, Ayin. I really really like you. It was just a dream. I realized. It was truly a beautiful dream. I clutched my chest tightly, my hands and feet ice cold, as if I were trapped in a net, slowly being deprived of breath. Tears fell one by one. Aine. What's wrong? Someone suddenly pushed open the door and walked toward me, looking at me with a panicked expression, with tear-filled eyes. I raised my hand to wipe away the tears and finally saw the man's face. Aine. It's okay. I just went out to handle the Songhouse matter. I found the agent who was bribed by Songhouse. And I also found the janitor who happened to pass by that day. He saw that Song-Ru pushed Haley. And Song-Ru has been convicted. The people from Songhouse are also being sued by me for false accusation. Aine. No one will ever falsely accuse you again. The man gently patted my back as he recounted everything that had happened while I was asleep. I raised my eyes to look at him. I leaned gently into his embrace, listening to the clear, forceful beats of his heart, and finally smiled. It's okay. I missed you. I whispered to him. He Wenjin. Have I ever told you? I really, really, really love you. The man laughed and held me tightly in his arms. He said, I like you too. Ian. Lovers, separated by years, finally confessed their love to each other. Mountains and seas, time and space, could not stand in the way. The reunion of lovers.